And when stars are in light, the weaver, we would know.
We are live. I think we're having some technical difficulties, but I think we're live and we're going, and that's great. Welcome everyone. Welcome to my guests, Deb, Jim, and Beth. And I said that in clockwise order. We'll make quick introductions in a second. Hello everyone. I'm Beth Sunshine. If you're new to the Improving Sales Performance live cast, welcome. Just so you know, the theme of the last 6 weeks has really been unpacking our media sales report. This is a report that we do annually. This one was done in fourth quarter of 2020. And every week we've been unpacking just one portion of it and inviting some folks on and just kind of diving a little deeper into what does the data mean, and how does it maybe show itself inside of a sales organization week in and week out. Today, we are going to talk about culture and engagement. And I know there's a lot of, that seems to be a big buzzword right now as everyone is trying to figure out this new model, this work from home or work from anywhere, and how's it going to work. So I'm excited to dive into this. I do want to introduce my guests. I'm fortunate enough that I get to work with these people day in and day out. First is to my right, I think. It's Deb Fulghum, and Deb is a talent, works for Up Your Culture, and I'll explain Up Your Culture in a minute, as well as a talent analyst at the Center for Sales Strategy. Just below Deb is Jim Host, who is managing partner at the Center for Sales Strategy, and then to Jim's left, I think, is Beth Sunshine, and she is not only a partner and VP of talent for Center for Sales Strategy, but also is the Queen of Culture at Culture. I don't think she wants that title. But we're going to dive into it. And Beth is modeling her Up Your Culture shirt today. So is Deb. I didn't notice you had yours on too. Yeah. Deb is modeling the Up Your Culture. And those are all available at the Up Your Culture store. No, they're not. I'm making that up. It's not a bad idea. We'll have Up Your Culture stuff. That's right. All right. So culture and engagement is a really, really big deal. It's always been a big deal. And Beth, I've heard you say things like, you have a culture, whether or not you acknowledge it or not. It's kind of like you have a weight, whether or not you step on the scale. You you can either address what you got and try to improve, or you can just have what you have and be oblivious to it. I want to give you some stats, some data from the media sales report, and then dive into some questions. And of course, anybody watching right now, if you have a question, please feel free to type it in the comment box, and we'll try to get to it. But let me give you some of these stats, and some of them are quite good, which should give us all some optimism. But there are some in here that I do want to dive into. One, 83% of the salespeople said they would recommend their company as a great place to work. I think that's good, although 17%, I guess, would not, and that's kind of not so great. 1 in 6 would not recommend their company to potential colleagues. 22% of salespeople are not sure about the future of the marketplace. 85% feel their company is equipped to be competitive in the future. I think that's pretty optimistic. That's good. 83% feel they have access to the resources needed to exceed their sales goals. Again, that's pretty good, better than 4 out of 5. 91%, this is the one that really grabbed me. 91% of salespeople do not want to go back to the office full-time. They, not 91% said they don't want to go back full-time, and the majority of sellers rated their work from home experience a 4 out of 4. So 91% don't want to go back full-time, and the majority of them say, by the way, working from home has been a terrific experience. In fact, I was talking to a seller yesterday who is one of the best salespeople I've ever met, and he is having a record month this month. He shared with me he's only seen his manager face to face, in person, twice in the last year. And he's having the single best month in his 30-year career this month. Pretty outstanding, right? Yeah, outstanding. All right, so let me ask you some questions. And Beth, we'll kick it off with you. You're right there, okay. When it comes to company culture, what makes a good company culture? How do you know if you have one? How do you know if you don't? Give us your take.
Ooh, good question. So yeah, you're right. You've heard me say it before. Every company has a culture. The question is simply, are they intentional about designing the culture that they want to have? Most often when companies come to us for help, it's because they've allowed their culture to just sort of evolve organically, and it hasn't really evolved into something that's productive, something that they really want. And what's so important about a company culture is it directly connects to engagement. So when your culture is better, your engagement is higher. And that's really where the magic happens, because when employees are engaged, they know what they're playing for, they know what they're going to win, they're willing to give it their all. And, you know, speaking just from the world of talent, they bring their talents to work so that they reach their full potential. So that's really why it's important. Now, how do you know if you have a good one? We use a survey with our clients to start out, to just kind of measure what their culture is today. There are tons of signs that someone has a good or a bad culture. We have a self-inventory that people can use if they want to get a general sense of that. But in very general terms, if a sales organization is a place where people want to work, where they're able to retain their people, where performance and revenue grows, key accounts stay, their culture is probably pretty good.
Jim, anything you want to add to that? I know that you've seen this in real life.
Well, yes. How do you know when you have good company culture? I think there are a number of indicators. One is you grow revenue faster than the rest of your peers. Yeah. I mean, all the research studies out there, Culture Amp did one, and they show the companies that have a great company culture grow revenue 2.5 times faster than those companies that don't. I think that's pretty compelling. What else would I look at? Retention, customer retention goes way up. And there's Aberdeen Group did a study, about that. The 233% greater loyalty among customers with companies that have great culture. what's the impact of that? We all know if you start doing the math, the loss of a key customer is a huge impact on your organization. So if you could more than double your customer loyalty, I mean, that's huge. The other thing is it comes into talent. Companies that have good culture have less turnover. I mean, people are going to leave for bigger opportunities. That does happen in every company, but you want to be that company that people think twice or three times before they make a decision to leave. You want to be a company that's difficult to leave. I know some companies, people have told me it was pretty easy for me to make this decision to leave this company. You don't want to be that company because 1.5 times annual salary for the cost of turnover, start doing that math. A group of any size, you're into 7 figures here pretty quickly. Then the other thing is if you have good talent, you're always looking for more good talent. If you have a great culture, people want to work there. It's like, this is the place to go. It becomes like this magnet. And so what's the value? We know there's a war for talent. You deal, Beth and Deb, in that territory all the time. It's tough to find good talent. Wouldn't it be great for people thinking about your company predisposed as like a destination? They'd like to be something.
Deb, anything you have to add to that? That's a lot of great information, right?
Yeah, I absolutely agree with everything Jim just said. It's that magnet, and we know. I just finished reading something on LinkedIn that showed that if employees are engaged, they tend to shout it loudly to other people, and they want to be proud of where they work. Actually, I have to put my glasses on to read you this, but because I have a note here that employees have 10 times more followers on social media than their employers do. So think of the voice that they have. And then it was also shared that an employee gets 561% more engagement on a message they share about their company than the company. So the more engaged your employee is, the more that message gets out to people. And then you become the place people want to work.
Yeah, exactly. One of the things that strikes me is that sometimes culture happens organically, right? And sometimes that's maybe because of a person and a leader, right? A leader that's there, an inspirational leader. And when that happens, and they have the benefit of all being in the same building, right? So you have an inspirational leader, you're all in the same building, or you have the means and the wherewithal to have to group gatherings all the time. And which is awesome, by the way. In my opinion, when that happens, that is fantastic. But I also worry that those companies are not investing in their culture. They're relying on the person to bring the culture. And what happens is, and we've seen this again and again and again over the years, is when that person leaves, the culture leaves with them, right? The culture leaves with them. And if they go to a competitor, then people follow that person to the competition. Or if they retire, people become that place that's easy to leave.
Right.
Which is too bad. And so I want to, this brings me to my next question. What are some of the benefits? Deb, we'll start with you on this one. We started this way, we'll go this way. What are some of the benefits of a strong company culture versus just a culture that one person brings because they're a great leader?
Right. The best cultures, when employees are engaged, so many great things happen. One thing leads to another. Innovation improves because people feel comfortable sharing ideas. They want to grow and develop, not necessarily title-wise, but when they grow and learn, your company grows and learns, and which leads to those profitable outcomes that Jim just said. But something you just said a minute ago led me to, I want to share this with you when we talk about culture, because I like to think of cultures. I love to garden. So I love to think of cultures like a garden. People go to a beautiful garden and they think, wow, this just magically appeared. Those gardens take a lot of planning, cultivation in the fall to get ready for the spring. They don't just plant a seed or a plant and expect it to grow, right? It takes time and energy, watering, nurturing, nourishing, pulling a few weeds out to make sure things continue the way that you want that garden to look. And a culture is the same way. You know, it's easy to assume that someone has a green thumb and made that garden work. And maybe they do have some of those talents. And that's just like a culture. There's people like you were just mentioning that gravitate towards building a good culture. But there's so many, it needs to be more than one person to get that garden to grow and enlarge. But the more attention that you pay to it, the more it's going to flourish. And you can't just leave the garden to go about its own way, because that's when the weeds take over and negativity spreads, right? And that's when the engagement, as Beth said, you have an engagement no matter what. But what type do you want? Do you want that beautiful engagement, or do you want the one where you're always picking weeds?
Hey, Matt, can I add to that?
Yeah, go ahead.
You know, when you think about the risks of having one person being the person who establishes the culture in the company, you may be blessed to have a visionary leader that people like to follow, but I think that's different than having a healthy culture. A healthy culture is something that's shared among all the leaders and all of the people inside of the company. And so if I have a visionary leader that's doing a good job of keeping people engaged, I have a visionary leader, but I'm at risk if that person leaves, obviously. But what I really want is for that vision to be spread among all the leaders, among all the people executing, because that's the company culture. What you're describing with one person is almost like the visionary culture leadership dependent upon one person, which could change, could be temporary. But, you know, a company culture is lasting when people feel like they belong, when people listen to them, when they have a chance to contribute ideas, when they see what they do put into action, when they trust each other. Okay, that is a company culture. So I think companies that are blessed with visionary leaders, depending on one person, may or may not have a good company culture. Company culture is dependent upon participation from a lot of people and belongings.
Yeah, I'll add to that if that's okay. I completely agree that a culture really isn't a culture if it's just one inspirational leader spearheading everything. That's actually not a culture. A strong company culture happens when everybody is sort of on this journey together, when they have a shared mission, which means that they know where they're going and they know why they're going there. So they have a reason for being. They have core values that are sort of the rules everybody lives by. It's kind of a personality of the organization. Here at our company, here's who we are and why we are doing what we're doing. And then with every hire that company makes, they need to bring somebody on who will add to that culture, because what we know is every single individual is either going to detract from a culture or add to it, one or the other. And so if every hire is really conscious, you're looking for someone who doesn't just have the talents but also has the culture fit, then it just grows. It becomes a snowball with momentum, and it just grows.
Yeah, it just seems like if a company isn't willing to invest in their culture, they're saying that, right? That's an intentional statement. We're not willing to invest in our culture. You have two choices. You either are willing to invest in your culture, and you do, or you're saying it's not important. We are not willing to invest in our culture. And that's tough. I feel for the people that are working for those organizations.
You know, funny. Oh, go ahead.
I was going to say, not investing in culture is, that's a fool's errand, okay? Because you're going to pay one way or the other. In fact, you're going to pay more if you don't invest in your culture. Take a look at the turnover. Let's say that you have a staff of 10 and you turn over 3, and those 3 people make on average $60,000 a year. That's 180 grand. That's really more like 1.5 times, about $240,000 in a loss every year. If you have a staff of 100, now we're talking about $2.4 million. These are real dollars. I mean, I've had conversations over the years with executives, CEOs, given the size of the organization. I think you ought to budget about $3.5 or $4 million. And that will be the cost of turnover in your organization, because we know what it is historically. So put that as an expense line item, because you're going to suffer that anyway. They're like, Jim, if I did that, the board would kill me. But you know what? You're doing it anyway, because that's an unbudgeted kind of internal bleeding. And so you could say, I'm not going to put the time and energy and money into my culture because I'm focused on the bottom line. The reality is, if you want a bottom line, you're going to spend money and time and energy and effort on your culture, because it's all of those things, people feeling engaged, participating, staying, recommending you to other talented people. That's what makes your bottom line. So if you think you're saving money by not investing time and energy and resources, you're going to pay back 4 or 5 times.
Beth, were you going to add something?
I was actually going to say something very similar, so I won't go into a lot of details, but it is you can't win if you don't play kind of mentality. And what's interesting is that companies that say they don't have a budget for this, they don't have money set aside to focus on company culture and employee engagement, they're missing out on the opportunity, because for every dollar spent on something like this, or every hour spent on something like this, it actually pays off on the bottom line, and the metrics are there to prove it. So it's, I like it when companies think more long term about that payoff.
So I want to switch gears just a little bit. We have a question. I'm going to put it up here on the screen, and I think it's a good segue to the next section. So the question is, what does a company do if they have a bad culture because of a previous leader, but can't seem to change it even after the leader has left? Okay, so with that as the premise of the question, let me ask this, and Beth, we'll start with you. I know we have a division of Up Your Culture. You and Deb are modeling the outfits, fantastic. And go to the Up Your Culture store at the website and purchase those. I know that we have, and we talk about it on the website, the 4 engagement elevators. So first question, maybe you can just respond. What are the 4 engagement elevators, and how they work? And then what are some, and then I'd like each of you to comment on what are some things that a manager could do starting this week to improve the culture on their team, kind of responding to that question of, you had a leader, it was a bad culture, we're trying to get out of it. So Beth, 4 engagement elevators, and then Jim, let's go to you after that with what could you do this week?
All right. So the 4 engagement elevators, they're really a 4 groups of behaviors that when you study the best company cultures, those cultures have in common. And we call them the 4 engagement elevators because when we help companies to focus on making improvements in those areas, we see that they're able to elevate or lift engagement. So we've made it really structured and organized so that companies can strategically elevate engagement in these areas. The first one's shared mission. And I actually referred to this earlier, but employees who have a culture that has the shared mission, they have a clear sense of where they're going, why they're going there. They feel purposeful. They're ready to roll up their sleeves. They want to be part of it, and they leave it all on the field. So shared mission would be the first one. Second one is people development, and that one's about demonstrating to your employees that you care about your people as a company, as a manager, that you care and that you're actively invested in their growth, because human beings intrinsically want to grow and evolve and develop. And then the third one is valued voice, which is really about strong 2-way communication. So on one hand, people feel comfortable sharing their thinking and they know that that's appreciated. And on the other hand, they also value the input of others and they're willing to have an open mind to the thinking of others. And then the fourth one is earn trust, which is about transparency, and it's about giving people confidence in the company decisions and faith in the leader's integrity. And just to touch on what Trey asked, I think that when someone with a leader leaves a bad culture behind and a new leader comes in, this is the answer. These are the things they need to focus on. They need to start by understanding how they're doing in each one of these and then strategically work to lift them.
Excellent. So let's talk about putting some stuff to action. I know that putting a foosball table in the center of the break room is the single best way to improve culture immediately. Everyone else knows that too. So let's get beyond the foosball table. What are some things we can do? Jim, let's kick it off with you, and then let's hear from Deb and Beth both.
Well, in your previous comment, you said, what do you do if you think you have a bad culture, or you have a bad culture, a previous leader? What would you do? The first thing I would do is acknowledge that. Say, look, we know, okay, this culture is not what we want it to be, not what you want it to be. So we're going to do some things about it. Okay, we're going to roll up our sleeves. We're going to work on this together. We're paying attention to it. We think culture is important because we want you to be here and to be fulfilled. We all want to have that feeling. We want to serve our customers. We want them to stay with us. So we're going to work on it together. I think that is key. It's not like, we're going to wave this magic wand. We're going to tell people we want the culture to be better around here, doggone it. And it better be. And so we expect we're going to measure it again in 6 months. I mean, you can't dictate the stuff. You have to earn it. And so I think, acknowledging the fact that you think that culture is important, and regardless of where it is now, if it's bad, somewhere in the middle, mediocre, or maybe it's already good, we find the best companies would have an even better culture. What I would do proactively is say, we're going to be investing in building this culture together on a regular basis. It's here we are now, but we think it can be even better, and we need you to be part of the process. And so that's going to be
really, transparency is a big part of that.
Absolutely. I mean, we're all real people here. And so, whatever, with the culture isn't what it needs to be, let's fix it together.
Deb, what would you, give us some things.
Yeah, so interestingly, when Beth was sharing the elevator of earned trust, it goes so much to what Jim said. We think, and we know that employee engagement changes when people trust their leaders. So to Trey's point, Trey's question and Jim's point, the more that you are acknowledging things and saying, we know it's not good, but it's not just on me, it's on all of us. Mm-hmm. We know that culture, that the leaders across the board, they're really setting the tone. So it's important that leaders be unified in that vision and that shared mission. Where are we going together? Letting people know where we want to be a year from now, 6 months or a year from now. Not just keeping it in our head or thinking we can't share that, but being transparent about where we want to go. I also think it's imperative to listen to people. Ask their opinions. Do a little tour. If you're a new leader, walk around and ask everybody what they think the best culture looks like to them. Because everybody has different opinions. Gathering that information is important. We do gather information when we do surveys to get a deeper dive, but people want to have their voice valued. They want to be heard. So take that opportunity. We have tools that allow you to dig deeper to help people develop. I think people development, I could go on, but people development is huge. We do something, Matt and all of us on this team, we're very much into development. We have a CSS book club. It's if people want to participate, they can. If they don't have to. It's about growing people and making them feel engaged in how they want to develop. So it's not a one size fits all. It's how it's really individualized. And I think that's a key takeaway here is, like you said, there's no magic pill. You can't go on Up Your Culture website and buy our shirt. You can't also buy a magic bean to plant in your garden to have it grow into a beanstalk, right? You have to pay attention. You have to be thoughtful and really have a plan, but share that plan with other people.
Beth, what would you add?
Yeah, I'm not going to say anything radically different. I think both Jim and Deb touched on how I feel about this as well. I think that the whole culture renovation concept has to start from the top. So it has to have the buy-in of the very, very top. It has to be something that it is the plan and it's what everyone's going to be held accountable to. But the work has to be done at the grassroots. So I like what Jim was saying about bringing everybody in on it, just saying, transparently, here's our goal. I like what Deb is saying about, valuing every voice. And I think that's right. I think that the first step is identifying your culture today. So who are we today? What are we doing well? What are we, where can we improve? And identifying very, very specific impact areas. And then putting a plan in place to fix that and bringing the whole company in. So we help organizations establish what we call a culture committee, which is all about keeping the identified culture that we all value and want alive with everything we do. We have tools like what we call a user guide that helps people understand each other, because all four of us totally different, wired different, we have different personalities, different talents, and we need to interact with each other knowing that we're really quite different. And so just doing things like that allow everyone in the organization to feel part of it, really understand the mission, and be able to express themselves, I think is what companies can do specifically moving forward.
All right, last question, last topic that I want to tackle. I want to address this this data point that came out in the media sales report that just said 91% of sellers say they do not want to go back to the office full time. And we're seeing that not just in our survey and our data, but big companies like Microsoft and Spotify and Google are offering a work from anywhere solution for some people. It's not for everybody, but for some people, they're offering a work from anywhere. What guidance or advice can you share? I mean, we're a completely virtual company. There's about 40 of us and we work from anywhere. What guidance or advice, and I'll just throw it out to all three of you. Who wants to chime in first?
I will.
Okay, Deb, Jim, and then Beth, you can finish us off.
All right.
So going back to what we were talking about a few minutes ago, I think trust is a big deal, and people want to feel trusted that they're going to use their time wisely and that they don't, I hear sellers all the time when we ask, what's one thing you want your manager to know about you? And they'll say, don't micromanage me. I'd say 99% of the time, that's what I hear. And who wants to be micromanaged? Nobody. But so many managers feel like they have to reply to someone above and let everybody know what's happening. And it can feel very micromanaged to people, especially when you're working remote. And that's, you think back to when people were in offices, what are you doing? Who are you calling on? Let me see what's your day look like? And if I have the freedom to get things done and you're not holding me down or putting me in too many meetings that I don't need to be in, that you could have sent me an email about, think how much more time I have to sell and accomplish my goals. As long as we're on the same page and we communicate through email, why rob my time? And trust me to use it wisely.
Yeah. Jim?
Yeah, well, it's interesting. I agree with you, Deb. This is about trust. If you talk to managers, we've talked to managers for years about allowing their sales teams to work remotely or in some hybrid fashion. And, most people are pretty resistant, at least to some degree. And when you keep asking questions and getting them to talk, it boils down to one thing. And that is, I feel more comfortable seeing them walk in the door at 8:30 and then being here till at least 6, because that tells me they're working a full day. And I always say, if that's your measure of how productive a person is, you're a lazy manager. All right, you should be managing people by objectives. How are they doing in retaining their customers, developing new business? How many prospects are they reaching out to? How many first-time meetings? How many result in sales and assignments? Those are much better measures of whether somebody is working. I think that this point in time where everybody's trying to figure out, do we go back to the office completely or partially, or how's this going to work? This is one of the greatest opportunities to either enhance your culture or mess it up, depending on what you do. I spent some time this weekend with a friend of mine. He's a partner in a major law firm here in Tampa, and they've all been working from home. Their assistants have been working from home, all the legal, the paralegals, everybody's been working from home. It's like, they seem to like it. He said, but there's some times when somebody said, well, I can't do this for you at 2:00 because I have to take my daughter to whatever, and that bothers me. And I said, so we need to figure out what that looks like. People are more productive working at home. That's what you're seeing, but you have these areas. It's just good discussion about expectations. How does this work? Okay, if you're going to be gone for a couple of hours in the afternoon, how do you make sure you get your work done? How do we communicate that so we don't have some gap in productivity or we can't get back to a customer? We just have to figure these things out and be completely open. But I think it's a huge opportunity to say, I trust you, and we're going to talk about what's really important in your performance, not whether or not you darken the doorstep.
Beth, final remarks?
Yeah, I completely agree. It all boils down to trust, and we do need to define what that work from anywhere looks like. The only thing I'll add is I think it's really different because of the individual. So although we need to create a structure, like here's what work from home or work from anywhere or our hybrid model is going to look like at our company, it's also really imperative that we understand each individual, because what will lead to their success in a work from home environment is going to be unique. Some people need more frequent touch bases from their manager. Some don't. Some people need more resources and support than others. And so I think just creating an environment where each individual can have success in in this world, this new world today, I think is really key. And the other thing I'll say, just related to how you let us in with that 91% statistic, you said 91% of people don't want to return to the office full time. And what I found interesting was the first stat that you shared when you opened up today, which is 86% of people said that they would say their company is a great place to work. So these are people who have been working from home, often not set up to work from home. They had to throw together a home office. They had to figure things out on the way. And yet 86% of them still feel as though their company, that maybe they haven't even walked in their doors for a year, is a great place to work. And I think that the companies who have people saying that, they've got this culture thing down. That's what we want to hear, is people who are working remotely still feel supported and connected to their company.
Yeah, I think that, we could probably go on this subject for easily a whole day, and come up with things that you could do, right? And I wish that there was a magic pill. I do. I wish that there was something that we could say, if you do this, culture's gonna, but it's not that easy. It isn't that easy. It takes
consistent effort.
Right. It's a consistent
effort, right?
Yeah. But
Matt, I would say the closest thing to the magic pill is doing something and making a commitment to do something about it. Okay. It isn't going to be easy. It isn't going to be overnight. It isn't going to be an ABC kind of approach, but acknowledging the fact that culture is important because it's important in general, but it also has a direct, not a dotted line, but a solid line of productivity. And we're going to do something about our culture. That is one thing that you can do that will produce results, at least at some level.
Right. Your company culture is kind of like that. When's the best time to plant a tree 20 years ago? When's the second best time today? Culture. The best time to start working on your culture was 20 years ago. The next best time is today. Yeah. So we're going to put some things up on the screen, the Up Your Culture website. You can go and check it out. You can follow us on LinkedIn. Also in the chat box, I am going to put the, Beth had mentioned early on that we have a self-inventory checklist that we would encourage you to take to see what your culture is currently like. This isn't, and I put that in there so you can just go directly there. This isn't something that you can just say, oh, it's good, it's not a problem here, I'm going to let someone, take ownership of this, jump in, get involved. It's really, really important. I want to thank all my guests, Deb, Jim, and Beth. Thank you so much. We are putting up their contact information. If you have specific questions that you'd like to ask, you can reach out to Beth on her and LinkedIn, or Deb at her LinkedIn, or Jim at his LinkedIn. Please like, subscribe our YouTube channel, and share it with everyone that you know. We are trying hard to get up to at least 500 subscribers. We will get there, and we appreciate everything that you're doing. The Improve Your Sales Performance live cast will continue next week. We are going to change focus. We will no longer be focusing exclusively on the media sales report. We're going to go back to focusing on people, having guests that can help us, or that we can learn a little bit about how they improve sales performance in their work, or in their business, or in their job. So that's going to be an interesting a new direction that we take with the show. But we've enjoyed speaking today about this subject. We're passionate about it. We hope you have a great day. We'll see you guys.